Good afternoon, everyone. At the heart of any democracy is the idea that every vote should count equally. But what happens when political strategies interfere with that principle? This brings us to gerrymandering, an issue that raises serious ethical concerns about power, fairness, and the integrity of elections. Gerrymandering isn't just about redrawing lines, it's about shaping the political landscape in ways that can silence communities and distort representation. This topic is especially relevant in an ethics discussion because it forces us to consider the responsibilities of those in power. This directly challenges core ethical principles like justice, equality, and accountability. At its core, gerrymandering raises an essential ethical question. How much should rulers be allowed to change their own mechanism of power in the name of efficiency before it becomes an act of corruption? My name is Ákos Angyal, and in our presentation, Rafa will explain what gerrymandering is and provide historical context. Alice and Rafa will explore diverse perspectives, including arguments for and against certain redistricting practices. Linus will address the core question and ethical framework, and last but not least, Lana will entertain you guys with the conclusions. With that in mind, let's dive deeper into the history and impact of gerrymandering.
Imagine walking into an election, believing your vote truly counts, only to find out that district lines were redrawn in a way that all but guarantees the outcome. This is the reality of gerrymandering, a practice that manipulates voting district boundaries to benefit a particular group or political party. The term itself dates back to 1812, when Massachusetts Governor Elbridge Gerry approved a redistricting plan favoring his party. One of the districts was so oddly shaped that it resembled a salamander, giving birth to the term gerrymandering. There are three main types of gerrymandering. Participant gerrymandering, where one political party redraws lines to weaken the opposition. Racial gerrymandering, which either dilutes or concentrates the voting power of racial groups. And incumbent gerrymandering, designed to protect current office holders from competition. The courts have played a crucial role in shaping the legality of gerrymandering. In Baker v. Carr in 1962, the Supreme Court established the one person, one vote principle, ensuring fairer district representation. In Shaw v. Reno in 1993, ruled that racial gerrymandering could be unconstitutional. However, in Rucho v. Tom Claus in 2019, the court declared that partisan gerrymandering is a political issue, not a constitutional one, leaving up to the individual states. Gerrymandering remains one of the most controversial challenges to democracy today. As voters, it is up to us to stay informed, advocate for fair maps, and push for reforms that ensure elections truly represent the people. The threat of gerrymandering to democracy. Elections should be fair, reflecting the true will of the people. But gerrymandering, the manipulation of district lines for political gain, violates democratic principles by distorting representation and allowing politicians to choose their voters instead of the other way around. One of the most harmful effects is voter suppression, particularly for minorities. Racial and partisan gerrymandering can dilute the voting power of certain groups, making it harder for their voices to be heard. Beyond that, gerrymandering fuels political polarization. When districts are drawn to be overwhelmingly safe for one party, politicians have no incentive to appeal to the middle. This leads to more extreme candidates and fewer opportunities for bipartisan cooperation. To protect democracy, we must demand fair districting and reforms that put power back where it belongs, with the voters.
On the contrary, although gerrymandering is widely criticized, there are some benefits to it. First of all, it's part of traditional and legal practices. It's part of the U.S. Constitution to grant states the freedom to control their electoral districting, leaving the power in state hands, which has already been a long-standing practice. Secondly, if you look at the political reality of things, all parties already engage in gerrymandering whenever they have the chance, so banning it outright could actually unintentionally favor one side, since redistricting always has political influence. And lastly, but most importantly, gerrymandering can be used as a chance to enhance representation of minority groups through the creation of majority-minority districts, which gives marginalized groups throughout history stronger voices. However, these defenses raise ethical concerns. One question to ask is whether or not it is ethical for a party to redraw districts to secure power. This is a political strategy, yes, but it raises concerns for democratic fairness and the integrity of elections. An additional issue is the balance between voter suppression and voter representation. As mentioned earlier, gerrymandering is a way to help amplify the voices of minority groups. However, some forms dilute voting power by spreading particular groups across districts, making it harder for them to influence election outcomes. Which raises the question, is gerrymandering a tool for equitable representation or for disenfranchisement? Even if gerrymandering is legally permissible, it can lead to elections where the results are already predetermined, technically weakening democracy. My points here present a fundamental ethical challenge. Should legality justify a practice that undermines the very principles of fair representation?
The ethical discourse involved when talking about gerrymandering is complicated because, on a surface level, anyone who learns about it would most likely say that it is a conflict of interest. The political leaders shouldn't be able to manipulate voting districts to their advantage. Simple as that. But if that is the case, why haven't we changed it yet? And that question boils down to the fact that it is simply what is legal. They haven't committed any crime, therefore they are ethically justified, right? Well, herein lies the problem, the possible dissonance between what is legal and what is ethical. In American culture, where gerrymandering primarily takes place, the legal system plays a crucial role in people's lives. More so than almost any other culture, it places complete trust in its constitution and in the legal ramifications derived from it. We use it as a reference to develop our ethics and our morality. What is legal must be inherently good, simply because it is legal. This allows us to look the other way when we observe government acts that often wouldn't be considered ethical, consoling ourselves with the idea that we simply don't know enough about politics and we should trust our political leaders to know what they are doing and to operate better ethically than we ever could. This sequence of legal, therefore rational, therefore ethical, is the flaw in our political and legal culture that politicians can exploit to their advantage with the act of gerrymandering. And our remedy for that must be to reverse the order of our moral reasoning. We must act as social beings on the premise of what is rational, therefore what is ethical, therefore what should be legal, even if that rationality conflicts with the current legality. The act of gerrymandering is a great way to demonstrate legal and ethical incongruence. We have to operate based on the following parameters. Gerrymandering, based on previous arguments, is unethical. Gerrymandering is legal. We shouldn't do or tolerate unethical acts, and ethics and reason supersede legality. Therefore, we shouldn't act or tolerate acts within legal boundaries if it goes against ethics and reason. This argument can be extrapolated to assert that ethics and reason must determine how laws are made, not the other way around. Not only this, but we are indeed justified in violating certain aspects of the law if it clearly and without room for debate goes against the principles of ethics, morality, and reason.
Throughout this presentation, we've explored the complex issue of gerrymandering, how it manipulates electoral boundaries, the ethical dilemmas it raises, and the differing perspectives on its justification. Gerrymandering allows politicians to select voters instead of the other way around, destroying democracy as we have witnessed. It restricts the voices of minorities, increases political division, and threatens equal representation. The ethical analysis leans towards fairness, accessibility, and accountability, despite the claims of some that it is a strategic political tool or even a way to increase minority participation. So, what can be done? The way to more fair elections is provided by independent drawing commissions, data-driven solutions, and legal changes. However, democracy ultimately rests on its citizens. We empower injustice to continue when we accept them. Demanding justice brings us one step closer to a political system in which each and every vote matters. Fair representation is essential to a good democracy. The political ethics of tomorrow will be shaped by the district lines we create today. Will we fight for a system that represents the actual will of the people, or will we allow gerrymandering to continue to dictate our future?